welcome back to the Book and Life podcast. Today we're going to have an exceptionally talented British author on with us to discuss her latest two books. And also, it's Christmas week, so we're in a crime filled Christmas week theme. But before we get too far into our podcasts, it is time for our daily advert, and it's with Marianne Curley's The Tyne Guardian book series, and I have begun reading book one, and I have to say it is lived up to expectations so far, and I cannot wait to share it with you very soon. The battle is over, the war is won, the prophecy complete, but life can't just pick up where it left off for Ethan. Struggling to cope with tragic loss at odds with friends and the guard, he finds himself adrift, jumping at shadows and sensing someone who can't possibly be there. Blaming herself, the goddess Athena's death, Giselle swears revenge and vilify the immortals' plan for world domination, but Giselle hadn't planned on love. And that leaves her with an unbearable choice. Should she follow her heart or the strings of a goddess, short on praise but high on expectation, who continues to pull her from the grave? As the guard and the order battle through the past and into an impossible future, darkness lurks around every corner. The fight for world survival rests with just one. Is it friend or foe who stands in the shadow? And it's a reminder that The Price of Freedom by Rosemary Rowie is on sale, and it's all proceeds are going to the refugee crisis in Ukraine. And this book series is a Roman crime series. Her agent has also donated her commission. So it is a great novel that I recommend all of you to check out, and lend your support where you can. And before we get too excited about Rosemary's work, we're going to move on to another British crime writer, and this one is a very big fan favourite of mine. So please everyone, welcome Kate Ellis. And welcome Kate Ellis to the show. It is truly such an honour, because I actually found your books, funnily enough, when I was reading Nicole Ford, who does the archaeologistics. So
yes.
I was super excited to have you on, because I felt like you were a similar kind of vein to what she does. So I was like, yay! So welcome. And I see you've got a hardback, paperback out, and you've got a hardback coming out.
Yes,
And I wanted to say this before we get started. I love your background, because I was one of those drama students for a long time. I actually got accepted to for drama, but I never actually got to go through with it. So to see that you have studied drama and you worked in teaching, and I was actually a teacher's assistant. It was really awesome, and I was really excited. I was like, somebody after my own heart who understands the struggle of being somebody who's passionate about drama, but then also somebody that's been in the teaching game too and understands the slight frustration with that.
I first started writing when I wrote a play, and I won a competition, Northwest Playwrights competition, and that's how I started. But nothing is ever wasted, because I now do quite a lot of murder mysteries in libraries. I've written some murder mysteries, and the libraries love performing them, and they're great fun. Yeah.
It's funny you say that, because in Shetland they are mad about crime, because we had Anglais up there for the longest time, and we also had Marzie Taylor up there.
Oh yes, I know Marshall.
Yeah, everyone does. She's not a easy person to forget. I love her to bits. I probably wouldn't have continued writing if it hadn't been for her in high school, because she encouraged me when we crossed paths, and I have to say it was an honor to have her on the show. She was our, I think, third episode we had here at the Book and Life podcast, so that one's out if you want to listen to it. But yeah, no, she was the same. She's like, just write whatever you feel, and it'll come so naturally to you. And I always find she's dead encouraging.
Yes, yeah, she is. She's lovely. Yeah.
So yeah, I grew up in Shetland where you either read historical romance slash drama or you
Hmm.
read crime.
Yes.
The two kind of like popular ones. Because I grew up with Catherine, and then my friends were always reading crime novels, and it was kind of like complete opposites attract in a way.
Hmm.
We used to always have a giggle and a laugh because, you know, we'd be like, "Oh, here comes Marzi," and we do she's writing. Ooh, what's she writing? There's always that kind of buzz that we had around her because we'd caught her writing a couple of times. I don't know if it was like just a
Yes.
little story she had in her head or something, but she would always make these little notes on a pad of paper. So yeah, it was great. I always look forward to seeing her. And I
Yes.
am delighted to have you on. I love having British crime writers on. I've had M.W. Craven on
Oh
the
yes.
show,
Yeah.
and he was a fun. He was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
He probably talked a little bit too much of the actual, oh my god, you're a ex parole officer. I have to know about this. So he might have gotten a little bit too much quizzed on that, but he certainly had fun. And yeah, I'm really excited to do this one with you. So tell us a little bit about the book you've just released and what it's about.
Oh, the Stone Chamber. Wow.
I love
um,
this, guys. You can't see this, but she's got a copy there. So I'm super
yeah.
excited. You can't tell, but I'm super excited.
Yes, it begins when a couple, a retired couple, are shot dead in their home in the Devon countryside. Now, they were originally from London, and the man used to be a police officer, so it's assumed that the death is it's sort of execution style murder. So it's assumed that that is the motive. But in my books, nothing is ever straightforward. His name is found on a list of people who've been sent tickets anonymously for a tour of a former asylum on Dartmoor. And then Wesley, my detective, discovers that other names on the list have also died in mysterious circumstances. And then he's drawn into the chilling history of this asylum and, does it hold the key to the case? And then his friend archaeologist Neil Watson, who um, always I always introduce the historical aspect of my books via Neil's his archaeological investigations. He finds a skeleton of a woman buried in a sealed chamber dating back to the 15th century at his dig nearby. And is there a connection between Neil's discovery and the tragic events of the asylum Darkhole Grange?
Ooh.
Uh,
I love it because like they can't see our faces, but I think I had my jaw slightly ajar for most of that, and I was trying desperately hard to pick up my jaw from the floor. I was like, can't let on too much.
um,
No, too late.
no.
No, I love it because your writing it's so original and it's very unique, and I find it very dry almost. And I look forward to when I sort of see authors like that, because the one thing we could claim as British people is we write originality. It's like it's
Yes, yeah,
inbred in us. Like we don't rehash stories, we look for our own new contempt. You know what I mean? It comes from deep within us. So I
definitely, yes.
that's why I love having British writers on. It's like a passion for me. If I find a really good one, I'm like, gotta have this person on, and oh, I hope they accept my offer. I mean, that sounds incredible. So, tell me what inspired this series for you, and what was your aha moment of I've got to write this series?
Well, I think you should always write the sort of books you want to read. And I've always loved crime. I
Yeah.
always say when I'm doing a talk, my mother led me into a life of crime because she was a huge crime fan and she used to um, put crime novels into my hot little hands, And I always
Yeah.
started off on Enid Blyton's mystery stories as well. I've always loved a good
Oh.
mystery. So, and I'm also very interested in history. It was my favourite subject at school. So, I've written the sort of books I would like to read. Mystery, really twisty mystery with, nothing. I hope my solutions are never obvious. There's always a big twist.
Is that something that you worry about? That people catch on to the murderer right away?
Oh yes. In fact, I've changed my plot. If it's getting too obvious, no.
It's funny you say that, because one of the things I hate, and I do this with my husband, is we watch NCIS, and 90% of the time he'll go, "He did it. We're only 2 minutes in. The freaking credits isn't rolled yet. How do you know he's done it?" And I just want to smack him. Shh. Because he is terrible. I think because he grew up in Glasgow and he saw crime and he saw murder, I think he automatically just has that logical brain of, I know who's done it.
Yes.
And it's annoying because he gets it right 99% of the time. And it's like, so he doesn't read crime novels because of that reason. And he was a huge Ian Banks fan, so I think that was part of the reason he was so good at it, was because he grew up on Ian Banks. His mum loved Agatha Christie, and he used to watch Pyro with his grandmother. So yeah, he drives me slightly nuts because I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, you gotta read this," and he'll be like, "Let me read the blurb." And from the blurb, he used to be able to tell me who the murderer was.
Oh.
And I would get so frustrated with him, and I'd just fire the book at him and go, "Stop that. I hate it." But the only people he's ever been wrong about has been Fiona Cummings, funnily enough, and Marcy Taylor. So it'll be interesting to see if he can do it with W. Crane's books and yours.
Yes.
I think this will be a test for him. So we shall see. I will let you know how that goes. But
yes.
yeah, I like trying them as well, because my mother-in-law, she's such a fanatic for crime, and so I read them first to make sure that they're not too horror-y, because she can't. If it's too gross, she can't handle it.
Yes, I'm the same. I don't like.
I know.
Anything totally violent or torture or anything. I just can't. No. Yeah.
But yeah, Fiona Cummings has got me a couple of times, because I read the Bone Collector in the hospital, and of course the guy is actually a janitor in the hospital. So you can imagine I was in for 4 weeks that trip. Every janitor got a death stare. I'm like, you coming to get me? Give him the mug. I always call it my Glasgow mugging face of, strictness.
I'll tell you what TV series I used to love, because nothing was ever obvious, set in Glasgow, Taggart. I used to. Do you remember those?
Yeah,
they were brilliant. Yeah. And sometimes, you'd start off and you think, oh, it's just a gangland killing or something. But then it became something far more interesting, and all the twists and connections, and I used to love Taggart.
It's funny you say that, because I've just gotten into Grantchester.
Oh yeah.
Which is the Vicar and D.I. Keating.
Yes.
And I didn't think I'd like it, because everybody raved about it, and I'm like, this is going to be the Shetland TV series all over again. I'm going to watch it and just fetal position and just like, no, can't do it. Because I love Anne Cleese, but the TV series representation of Shetland is just sometimes too on the nose. I know, I figured you'd love it. Yeah. But for me, it's sometimes too on the nose, or sometimes it's just nothing like Shetland in a way. So
I think the ones based on her books were excellent.
Yeah,
I love the ones based on her books.
Definitely excellent. I think I cringe because it's a Glaswegian trying to play Shetlander, and I'm like, oh, he's getting this so wrong. And then you see the actual person from Shetland playing the supportive role, and you're like, that's how it's done. So yeah, I get wary about doing watching TV shows, but Yeah, I have fallen in love with the Grantchester one.
Yes, they're very
Slightly,
good. Yeah, I enjoy
slightly
those.
addicted to it at the moment. I'm trying to catch up because you guys are all in season 7, and
Yeah.
I'm only on season 4.
Yeah,
So I got a
yeah,
bit
they
of
are
catching
very
up to
good,
do.
very enjoyable, very original.
It is. It's really good, and I kind of thought it would be a little bit like Agatha Christie kind of style,
Mm.
or Midsummer's Murders, or something like that. And then I was surprised it really wasn't like that, and I just got into the rhythm of it a little bit more.
Mm.
Um, I'm interested to see how it develops. I must admit.
Yes, yeah.
I think yours would make a great TV series. I must admit.
Oh, I hope one day, possibly.
One day, yeah. Well, you never know because, Grantchester was based off a book series, and there's
Yes,
a lot of
yeah.
them that are now. So
We can
fingers
hope.
crossed.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
So your upcoming novel. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that and what we can look
Oh,
forward to with that one?
the one that's out in August, Serpent's Point.
Yes. Well,
Well,
technically it will be out already because we're having our Christmas week
oh,
here
yes,
on the
yes.
Life podcast, and we're having a little bit of fun. So yeah, tell us about that because I think
Well,
this will make an
Serpent's
excellent
Point.
Christmas stalker filler.
Yeah. It's a place in Devon, a sort of coastal place in Devon, and it's the focus of lots of local legends about a serpent being beneath the ground now. There's a large house on a headland, and it's shrouded in an ancient tale of evil. But at the present time, it's lived in by a sort of artists' colony, and there's also some filming going on there, which was quite interesting and quite amusing. Anyway, a woman who was house sitting at the stables to this big house is found strangled on a coastal path, and of course Wesley's called in to investigate. This woman, as I mentioned, has been house sitting at Serpent's Point. And Wesley's very surprised when he finds out that she's been conducting an investigation of her own. She sort of has an incident room in the house about unsolved missing persons cases, and she's a bit of a mystery woman. And could these inquiries have led to a murder? The case takes Wesley to Yorkshire and the Cotswolds, and in the meantime, Neil, is the archaeologist, is making a very dramatic discovery of his own in the fields near Serpent's Point. Something, a very rare archaeological find in Devon. It's actually Roman find. So this one goes back to actual Roman times and a Roman curse. Anyway, Neil also discovers a skeleton which doesn't date to Roman times, and then the pressure is on for Wesley to find a killer and
I like that.
save innocent people. And Serpent's Point obviously holds more secrets than anyone could have ever imagined.
I like that. That is definitely a book you want to be opening on Christmas Day because it's like, oh, a puzzle to solve, and yeah, no, that's exciting. I love that, and I know that my mother-in-law is gonna kill me because I'm gonna get her books for Christmas. She's gonna open it on Christmas Day and be like, Crystal, I have a terrible habit. I give books 3 times a year to at least her or somebody in the family gets books, and they give me that look as if to say, Crystal, none of us want the library collection that you have. And I'm like secretly thinking to myself, you say that now, but one day you will have your own. So I have been slowly turning her dining room into a library. She's not quite picked up on it again, so I'll see how long I can keep sliding that
Yeah.
in. But yeah,
I can
think she'll
even
love
read you a little bit of the beginning of Serpent's Point if you like. I haven't
That
got the
sounds
book
amazing.
yet, but I have printed out the first the introduction.
Wow.
Right.
Exclusive here, guys. Exclusive.
Hmm?
This is exclusive here. Hey.
Exclusive. Yes, you're the first people to hear this. Well,
You will like Christmas time.
yeah,
I get to hear it before
yeah.
everybody
At
else.
by Christmas, other people in libraries and that will have heard it. Right, chapter 1. The bridegroom had strangler's hands. Strong hands, restless hands, hands that could squeeze the life out of some unsuspecting victim. Susan didn't like the bridegroom. Not being invited to her best friend's wedding hurt like a knife twisted in the stomach. Susan had known Avril since primary school. They played together, laughed together, cried together, but not anymore. Not since Avril met him. Not since he'd set about separating her from her friends and family. Susan had decided to stand outside the registry office. If Avril saw her, at least she'd know she was there for her. But when the moment came and they emerged from the building, her courage failed her and she darted into the shop doorway. It was just the two of them, bride and groom. Avril wearing a floral dress and her new husband in an expensive suit. No bouquet, no buttonhole. A couple of strangers Susan didn't recognise followed behind sheepishly, muttered awkward congratulations, then walked off together. Witnesses dragged in off the street, perhaps. There were no family members at the wedding and no friends either. Just Avril and Ian alone. Avril gazed adoringly at her new husband as he bent to give her a half-hearted kiss. As Susan watched them walk off together, she was afraid for her friend. There was nothing she could do about it. Some people were their own worst enemies. And the next bit is 5 years later. The story of Serpent's Point featured in all the books of local legends for sale in the tourist shops of South Devon. But Susan knew it was just a fanciful tale that had grown up over the years, a painted devil to scare foolish children. Evil came from people, not places. It was said that many centuries ago, a huge serpent, guided by his master Satan, stole the promontory from the sea, and that the creature still lived there beneath the ground, surfacing every now and then to make mischief. In centuries gone by, superstitious farmers claimed the land was cursed, but that had never stopped them grazing the livestock there. Economics beat the devil any day. With the coast path so close to her new temporary home, she liked to begin each day with a walk to clear her head. That morning she followed the now familiar route, pausing every now and then, as she always did, to take in the wide vista of the sea spread out before her, its ripples sparkling like jewels as they caught the sun. Sometimes a large cargo vessel crawled lazily over the horizon, but today there were only yachts with gleaming sails, and whenever she saw one, she felt wondering whether he was aboard. As the day was young and the schools hadn't yet started the summer break, she found herself alone on the path, with all the beauty to herself. She breathed in the sea air and closed her eyes for a few seconds, listening to the cries of the gulls wheeling overhead and the buzz of the bees in the hedgerows. With the rolling green landscape to one side and the calm sea to the other, this was the nearest thing to heaven she'd ever experienced. But she knew she mustn't forget why she was there. She was so close to finding the evidence she needed, and only when she'd accomplished her mission would she resume her normal life. Justice would roll down from the mountains eventually, but not quite yet. The sound of approaching footsteps made her turn, bracing herself for the walker's ritual of bidding each other good morning with a suitably friendly smile. But a few minutes later, she was lying beside the path, her dead eyes staring up at the summer sky.
Oh, I love that. That's cool. Well, I got to hear it before anyone else, so I feel very honored. So, what drew you to Devon to write this one? What was your inspiration that made you set it there?
Well, it's a place I've been going, well, ever since my eldest son was 6 months old, and we discovered that area around South Devon, Dartmouth, and fell in love with it. And we went back every year and got to really know it. And when it came to me choosing where to set a book, I didn't. I'm from Liverpool, and I was a student in Manchester, and I live south of Manchester. I didn't want to set my book in a big city because I think publishers have an expectation. If you set your book in a big city, it's going to be about gangs, drugs, etc., etc., and that what didn't really interest me at all. I wanted sort of more, intriguing plots. So I thought, and somebody also advised me, always set your book somewhere you'd like to visit. So you can say you've always got an excuse to visit. So South Devon.
That's a good excuse, yeah.
And it's also got all human life was there, farming families have been there for generations, fishing, and there's also a big artistic community, lots of second homeowners, and the tension between the residents and the second homeowners, lots of holiday makers, all human life was there, rich and poor.
We'll just have to send your detective on some really nice holidays throughout the UK.
Yes. So, it just seemed an ideal place. I don't use real names. I call Dartmouth Tradmouth because I like to change things around.
Of course, yeah.
Tradmouth's got a police headquarters, and Dartmouth's got a little police post, that sort of thing. So it avoids angry letters in green ink and that sort of thing.
Oh no, but to be honest, growing up in Shetland, the only thing that they criticise people about is whether you can actually do it.
Yes.
So they will actually see if you can drive from one part of the island to another in a set time.
Yeah.
Or if it's possible for people to do the things that they do. Which makes some very disturbing conversations in the library, I must admit, at times.
Yes, yeah.
But
also Thomas Hardy did it with Dorchester's Castor Bridge, so if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me.
I always remember talking about this with Marzi, is that everything has to be, to her, she has to actually drive or sail these parts to make sure it is legit. And I think that's where we get our kind of desire for originality, our desire to make sure it's the best quality work, is because we have this sort of part of us that's like, no, we have to make sure it's right, and it's possible for this to happen. So I love when somebody takes that time and that energy to do that and to create that element and to check it, and I think that's what makes sort of like yourself and Marzi and MW Crane stand out, because you guys take that time to just double check your work, I like to say. You put that time and that effort into it, and as you said, you went and visited this place on a regular basis.
Oh yes, I think I've got the spirit of the place. I get lots of emails from people in Devon or Devon exiles said, oh yes, you've got the spirit of the place. And I think probably that's more important than geographical, whether so and so is a one-way street or that sort of thing. And I think if you called it Dartmouth, I would. Well, I couldn't have my police headquarters there, or I couldn't really use it. I'd have to. But
you had that kind of
big city.
Yeah, you had that really great train of thought and the eye for detail, and that's what makes us, I always say, the best writers for things like crime, historical. We call it period drama here. I always think that it's weird that the Americans call it historical drama or historical romance, and then you look at our side of the pond and we actually call it period drama because it's set in periods of time. So I always thought that was a bit interesting. But this is really, I'm really excited to get these myself. they might not end up as Christmas gifts this year. Darn it. Be swearing about the collection of books growing ever larger.
Yes.
Well, I might buy 2 copies, one for her, one for me. That resolves that problem.
Yes, I'm lobbying for extra bookshelves myself. Getting rather packed.
Yeah, I must admit, Ian, he's gotten so used to me that at Christmas time he doesn't even ask me really. He's like, I'll buy you another bookcase, and then he's like, I'll figure out where to put it, because it's just I have this need to just collect. I think so. If I find an author I fall in love with, I get their entire list. And then I slowly work my way through this entire list, even though at the moment my TBR is a bit like the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Yes.
But it's fun because, that's my escape. I have a long-term health condition, so I spend a lot of time in doctors' waiting rooms. I spend a lot of time at the hospital, and there is nothing worse than sitting in a waiting room if you don't have a good book.
Yes, I agree.
Because I don't know if this is the same for you, but 90% of the doctor's offices and the hospitals here have the worst cell reception, or mobile phone reception going. So you can't just sit on your phone because it doesn't work. So you kind of almost come up with another form of entertainment. And I think that's why Glasgow is, I would say, ferocious readers, because if you're on the bus or you're on the train or you're on the underground, it gives you something to do while you're reading.
Yeah.
And sometimes the buses are terribly late here, so it gives you an excuse to sit in the bus stop with a book, or sit on the bus hoping you get to your destination.
Yes.
Reading your book. So I think that's why I love Scotland a little bit more, because we're kind of customary readers, because we're normally bored out of our minds, so we're sitting reading something. So yeah, and it makes for great conversations.
Yes.
See the amount of conversations I've had in waiting rooms and stuff like that, because somebody's been bored and says, "Oh my gosh, what are you reading? Tell me about it." Because you can tell in their eyes they want to pass 20 minutes doing something. And I usually say, "Did you forget a book?" And they say, "Yeah." And then we end up talking about it. So
yes.
I seem to be like a little walking, talking marketing thing. I throw in a lot of books this way to a lot of people. If I'm reading it, then I share it. And it's funny because my consultant, the first thing he says to me is, "What you reading?" Because he's always like interested to see what I'm up to. And I usually get, if it's a fantasy book, he goes, "Oh, what are you reading this drivel for?" Or if I'm studying, he actually looked at my study material this year and he went, "What rubbish is this?" And I was like, "I'm doing an literacy course." That's what I got when he looked at the reading material I was having to go through. So funnily enough, it was Ursula the Dispossessed that we were covering at that time, and he was taking the mickey out of me for 5 minutes as he likes to do. So but no, I love it. So talking about books, has there been a book that you've read recently that you would say really stuck with you, that you haven't really been able to shake?
Oh, one particular fantastic book was Tombland, C.J. Sampson.
Oh, okay. That was not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
What was it about the book that stuck with you?
It was a very long book, and it was set in Norwich.
Okay.
And I don't know whether you've read any of his.
No,
his
actually, I haven't.
Oh,
but I've heard
about
his name.
Matthew Shardley, a lawyer, a Tudor lawyer in the time of Henry VIII.
Oh.
And this one is just after Henry VIII. This is Edward the Sixth, and all about the Reformation and the Breton Rebellion that happened in the 16th century. It's just very vivid, and it just took you to Norwich at that time, and yeah, absolutely brilliant. And funnily enough, that he mentions a hotel called the Maid's Head, or an inn called the Maid's Head,
Yeah.
and Matthew Sharplake was staying there, and I actually went to a crime writers conference in the Maid's Head, so it's still there.
Oh, that's incredible.
Very,
That must have
very
been fun because you could
marvelous
say,
book,
aha.
so well researched.
So if you had infinite time, an infinite bookshelf, who would you read? You get an author in a series, so you get to pick an author in a series. Why? Who would you pick and why?
One of my favourite authors actually is Peter Lovesey.
Oh, okay.
He is absolutely brilliant. I know him actually. He's a lovely man, and he writes absolutely fantastic books. Absolutely wonderful. In fact, his one of his early series, Sergeant Cribb, a Victorian series, was on the telly many, many years ago.
Oh,
And he
okay.
writes set in Bath about a detective called Peter Diamond, and they are absolutely fantastic.
That is actually on one of my places I want to visit is Bath.
Yeah.
So I love that you picked that.
Yeah.
So what about a series? Who would you pick for a series read? If you could pick a book series. Oh, you picked this series?
Yeah.
So if you could pick a different
there's probably
author,
quite a few actually. I enjoy Anne Cleese's Vera.
yes, she is cracking.
Yeah. Oh, who else? There must be lots actually.
I'll
tell you who I'm reading at the moment. It is absolutely fantastic.
Would it make you visit
Christopher Fowler as Bryant and May. They are wonderful books. They're really quirky about these two elderly detectives, and they're all set in London. They use London legends, and they're absolutely wonderful books.
I love that because I like the idea of exploring London legends, because I think a lot of their legends are not explored. I think they focus mostly kind of on gangs and drugs. I think a lot of the books that come out nowadays, if it's set in a city, as you said earlier.
Oh yeah, these aren't like that at all. They are just so quirky and brilliant, and they use the history of London, the legends of London, and they and the wonderful. It's called the Peculiar Crimes Unit, and that'll give you a clue.
Oh, okay. I like the title. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that is.
And they've even got a station cat called Crippin. They are absolutely wonderful books. Yeah, I can't recommend them too highly. Christopher Fowler.
I love that. Yeah. Is there an author, past and present, who has influenced, inspired, and made you excited about books? And obviously about writing.
It has to be Agatha Christie, Ruth Rendell as well.
Oh, okay.
Especially her Wexford books.
Can I ask why? What it was specifically?
Oh, just Agatha Christie's twists and it's absolute.
Turns, yeah.
And I always like Wexford with the characters and the twists and anything with. So
when you visit a bookshop, what genre would you say that you're automatically drawn to above all else?
Oh, crime. Perhaps history as
I like that as instantaneous as a crime.
Yeah. Perhaps history. I think you should always write what you enjoy reading.
Yeah, I totally agree actually, because so much advice I was given when I was starting out, because I was actually introduced to the idea of publishing and writing by Debbie Glory, who's a famous Scottish writer for children's novels. And she said that she's like, write what you enjoy reading,
yes,
and you can't go wrong. She says, don't
yeah.
worry about your dyslexia. You will find a place that accepts you for who you are, that will not hold your learning disability against you. She says you might even find a British agent that will help you. She says just trust in the system and write what you love reading, and you'll never go wrong. And she loved me for my detail. I was very detail orientated, and I did a short story that was essentially I built the tension and the drama around the details of the story, which I still do, but I got drafted into romance and I haven't quite made it back out. But yeah,
No,
when I
I
wrote
couldn't
my crime
write a
novel, it's the
romantic
same.
novel to save my life. I
Oh,
just, I just put murders in it.
hey, trust me, you can't go wrong because there's such a thing as romantic suspense now, which is cozy book murders. So yeah, don't worry about that. I've read Marie Force, who's a crime. You would say she was a sort of romantic suspense author. She does a fantastic series called her Fatal series, and that's set in DC with a presidential candidate and a detective who refuses to give up her detective post, even though her husband makes it into the White House. So, um, I've read sort of all variations, I would say, of different genres, and I can't write romantic suspense, but I did just do my first ever crime novel, which I got help with by a detective from the first 48 hours. Um, it has not actually been read by anybody. I think a couple of agents have seen it, but no luck yet. But yeah, I'm super nervous to come out of romance and dip my toe into crime, because I love crime podcasts and true crime. A lot of that I've watched over the years, and as I said earlier, me and my husband's watched a lot of NCIS, and I've kind of explored the world of crime television. So yeah, I love it, and I love being able to talk to you guys as well because it's almost like an inspiration to keep plugging
Oh,
away.
I'll tell you another series. I books I really love. D.L. and Pascoe, the late Reginald
Oh,
Hill.
of course, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I love those. I love those. Yeah,
Those are a great one. Yeah,
yeah.
I'll give you that. Have you ever picked up a book and just wondered, why did I pick this up? What was I thinking?
Not really. I tend to read the blurb, but
You
anything
don't do
with
what all of us do, just like pick up a book and say, "Oh, I like this," and I just go buy
yeah,
it
I
and then
tend to
read it.
read the blurb, and uh, I
It does save a lot of trouble, actually.
yeah, I wouldn't like anything with torture or ultra violence in it.
No, I'm with you on that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it can be a bit
yeah,
hard
that's
going, actually.
yeah. I
I do
tend to
like
read
that.
at bedtime, you see, so I don't want anything like that in
I
my
know,
head.
right? I do the same. Like I read for a period in the bath, and then I come to bed and I read it like another 20, 40 pages. And the worst thing you can do is read a really dark book and then fall asleep because you're like, oh, okay, your mind plays it out. Particularly mine does because mine likes to get the answers. So I'm with you on that one. I've made that mistake so many times. Going into our writing topic for the next section of the podcast, I gotta ask, what drew you to write crime? Was it sort of the love that your mom installed in you, or was there like another aha? This is where I need to be.
Well, I've always enjoyed, as I used to always write what you enjoyed reading. I've always loved crime and a mystery, anything with a good mystery.
Of course,
So,
yeah,
yeah, it's an obvious choice, really. And
yeah.
also, I liked history, so adding a bit of history to it.
Ties well together, actually. I must admit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I've done a trilogy, a purely historical trilogy,
yeah.
featuring D.I. Albert Lincoln, set just after the First World War, and that's been very well received. High Mortality of Doves, uh, and The Boy Who Lived with the Dead, and The House of the Hanged Woman, and that was
Oh, of course, yeah,
historical
yeah.
trilogy set in the north of England, around where I live. So.
We'll just have to figure out a way to send you up to Shetland so you can explore one of your favorite places there. See what comes back, because it's such a magical place to write that
I think
literally talk
Marshley and
around.
Anne
Yeah,
have done
and
very well
Marcy
on
would give
Shetland.
you the grand old tour, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's a lovely place to write, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just, you're inspired all the time. You really are. So, what gave you the inspiration to write your current series? What was the, like, what made you write the first book? Was there a ha moment, or did the characters just kind of come to you very slowly?
Um, I just got the idea. I just really wanted to write a crime novel, and I
Yeah.
just, had this
It just came to you. Yeah.
flash. Yes.
No, no, I completely understand. I've had books where it just comes to me and I'm like, "Oh, okay." Or I get a title and I think, what would be a good story behind this title? Um, so, no, I totally get that. And as a writer, I think it's very hard to explain sometimes where a lot of these ideas come from. And, you
Well,
know,
I did the first book I ever wrote was a historical set in
oh,
Tudor Liverpool, and that it was about the time of Brother Cadfael was really popular, and the publishers loved it, but they didn't. They said, "Oh, we've got enough historical detectives of that
detective, yeah.
period." Uh, so I wanted to write a contemporary story, but I couldn't leave the history behind. And there was this story. I won't give away the plot of The Merchant's House, but this story that was as relevant in the 17th century when I set it as it is today. So I did a mystery today, plus a background mystery in the 17th century. Through
Oh, I
Wesley's
like that.
detective archaeologist friends. And that's how the series started, really.
It's funny you say that because when I did mine, it was a horrendous murder that inspired my book, and it was one that happened in the States. And I thought, well, what would happen if this murder had happened here? What would be the emotional reaction to it here? And that's what kind of inspired me to write. I don't think I would have written a crime novel if it hadn't been for that event. So I think our surroundings and our everyday life is our best source for that. So it's so interesting that you say you took a crime that could fit into that time period, but also was relevant to this time period as your starting source. That really is inspiring, and it's nice to hear that. When you share things in common with other writers, it's lovely to have that kind of connection and that kind of, I would almost like to say, bond between people. I don't know if you agree with me on that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, what are your dreams for your books? Where do you imagine, if you could make your dream come true for your series, where would you imagine it going?
Well, the Wesley series has been very successful, and the dream is really that people keep enjoying them.
That's a lovely goal. I love that.
For people, I get lots of emails saying, "Oh, really enjoyed your books," and that's such a reward.
It is, yeah.
That's brilliant. Yeah, to know that you're making people's lives. And a lot of people in lockdown, say, "Oh, I found your series and they got me through," and that makes it all worthwhile, really.
Books were my saving grace in lockdown too.
Yes, yeah, me too.
I mean, I spent most of my 2 lockdowns in hospital, so I was so relieved to have books that I could read.
Oh, yes.
Because you get a bit sick and tired of watching things on your computer after a while. And I love just sitting and reading at night, and it made you almost forget, ugh, I'm stuck in a hospital, or ugh, I'm dealing with this. It just gave you that you could be healthy and you could be part of this amazing story. And I loved that. That's what really made me get through it, I think, made me happy. So, yeah, I think without authors like you, lockdown would have been a lot worse and a lot more difficult to get through. What has been your biggest trial that you've had to overcome on your journey as an author? What would you say was sort
Ooh.
of the pinnacle obstacle you had to face on your journey?
Well, the Wesley series has been very successful, and the dream is really that people keep enjoying them. That's the I found lockdown very difficult. The
Yeah.
isolation and sort of low-level anxiety, and that
Did that
I
impact
just
your
wrote
writing?
through it. And in fact, the Stone Chamber, with its sort of themes of someone being locked in an asylum and that sort of thing.
Well, no, I get that because I think a
Yeah,
lot
that
of
was
us felt
quite
like we were living in an
cathartic.
asylum during lockdown.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but at least you would have been able to pour your emotions during that
Yeah,
time
yes,
into your
I
book.
think I poured my emotions into it, and it's all about this anchoress who was walled into a little room at the side of a church, and oh, yeah, yes, I could
So,
sympathise.
so as a writer, do you ever get that moment where you think, I have the next story?
Oh, definitely, yes, yes. I see something, and then that's it. Yeah,
What would you
yeah.
say is the strains of writing these sort of books? What would you say is like, is there a mental strain or a physical strain or an everyday life strain that you need to kind of deal with when you're writing this stuff?
Um, Not really. I think the worst problem when you're writing a long series is trying to be original and trying not to repeat yourself.
Yeah,
And
of
I think
course.
Agatha Christie must have had that because I know she repeated some of her motives and her plots. But
Yeah, and
yeah,
I think
it's
it
trying to keep
becomes
up to the
obvious after a
standard,
while.
trying to keep the original. Um, I don't want to let my standard drop at all because my
Yeah.
editor sometimes said, "Oh, can you write quicker?" But I said, "No, don't want to let. I don't want to keep two books here. I don't want to let the standard drop. I want to keep the
Yeah, I
books
know.
good."
So what techniques have you used that you absolutely love with your writing? What's the like ones that you would say drive you or help you with your writing process?
Um, I don't know. I just do it. I rewrite. I rewrite. I just get the first draft down,
Yeah.
and it's a load of rubbish. And I rewrite and rewrite. My editor doesn't see it till about the fifth, sixth draft.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
really sensible. I do that as well.
yeah.
Um, I
But
do the
I
same
find
steps
it
as my
helps.
dyslexia though.
I mean, some people do. Some people get it right. They work very slowly and read it every day. But I find it just helps to just get it down and then make
You
notes
can
as you
work on
go
it. Yeah.
along, saying what needs changing. So
Yeah.
and keep polishing it, and that's what I
What
do
techniques
really.
have you tried and thought, what was I thinking trying this one?
um, well, after the first draft, you always think that about bits of your book, and you just change them. But I write lots of short stories, and
Yeah.
that's a very good way of polishing
I know. I
your
would agree with
technique
that.
really, and trying out new things. For writing the first person and yeah, that
So,
sort of
how
thing.
different is promoting your books now compared to back before COVID?
I'm getting back into normal actually. I've been invited to talk at loads of libraries. I've just done
Yeah.
the Carnival of Words at Wrexham, and I'm doing the International Agatha Christie Festival this September. I'm doing
Does it feel
uh,
good to kind of be getting back to normal and feeling
yeah.
less like COVID's
It's
running your
wonderful
life?
just getting back to normal and just seeing people again, seeing meeting readers again. It's fantastic.
I think it's really hard when COVID hit because us as writers, we're very sociable. Most people think we're
Yes.
not, but we really are sociable creatures and we like
Oh,
talking and
incredibly
we love that.
sociable. Yes.
And so I think COVID was almost like kneecapping a lot of us because
Yeah. No, yeah.
it took that
That's a good way of
community
describing
away a
it.
bit. Yeah. I
Yeah, because
think
I went to Crime Fest in Bristol as well, and that was great seeing everybody again.
yeah, I must admit it sounds like it's good to have that kind of connection and community and for I call it fraternity because I think
Yes.
writing is
Yeah.
a little bit like being in a fraternity because once you're in for life. So,
Yes.
yeah. So moving into the life portion of the podcast, which which I always love this part because it really breaks down the idea of us being antisocial people sitting in the house typing on computers all the time and having servants running around after us, and
If
us
only.
drinking whiskey and smoking cigars and all this kind of ideas. um, and I really love getting into those sort of demything these things. What is the first thing that you do when you want to de-stress from your writing and your editing and just the pressure of deadlines?
Um, Probably just hang out with family, friends, drink wine, read books, watch detectives on telly.
I like that. It's like, ooh, I hang out with friends. I like, ooh, watch crime shows. I love that. That would be my answer actually too.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, if you had infinite time, like, what hobbies do you do now? And what hobbies would you like to explore in the future?
Um, well, hobbies I do now. I'm a bell ringer at my local church,
Oh, that's
um,
cool.
and I'm also a member of an local archaeology group. I'd
Yeah.
probably, yeah, and yeah, I'd
Expanding on
probably
those
like to
eventually.
do more of the archaeology
Yeah.
if I had time, but and more historical research, more family research, possibly.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. If you could do one thing, anything in the world, and you could do it for a day, what would it be and why?
Um, I tried sailing once on Windermere, and that was great fun. I'd probably like to learn to sail because I come from a long line of Welsh sea captains, so it's
Well, there you
probably in
go.
the blood. But,
We'll just have to give Marzi a phone and get you out on her sailing boat.
yes, yes. And also, I've also liked to try and I've never ridden a horse, so I'd probably like to go riding as well.
I used to be a certified rider. In fact, I could actually teach. So that's so funny you say that because since my accident, I actually haven't ridden. But
Yeah.
yeah, I loved it. I loved doing that, and it's funny because horses have now started to play a role in my books, and I think it's almost like I've accepted. Maybe I can't ride anymore, but I can still have a horse.
Mm,
In my life, I can have it in my everyday writing. So yeah,
yes.
no, trust me. If you do it once, you'll fall in love with it, and that'll be
Yes.
part of you forever. I myself have a long-term illness. This makes me slow down and appreciate the day. What makes you smell the roses? What's your thing that just lets you slow down and appreciate
Ooh.
every day?
I suppose walking. I do enjoy walking. Um, Being amongst nature. Uh, Being with family and friends. And just having something to look forward to.
Yeah,
I think that was the difficult thing about lockdown. You didn't have anything to look forward to.
the structure
Now,
was kind of taken out of everyone's day, I think.
yeah, yeah, and just being out amongst nature. I think.
Where's your favorite place during the day that you like to curl up with a good book? Do you like doing it in the garden, the conservatory, cafe, reader's nook? Where do you like to go?
Uh, well, I don't really. I'm usually writing during the day, so my working hours sort of thing. But
Yeah.
I do like to come down to my office where I am at the moment. It's at the bottom of a garden, and
Oh,
it's very, very cosy. We've got a nice view of the trees, and
that is nice. Yeah.
yeah,
I look forward to actually having one day just a nice, quiet, little place to go and do my podcasts and share that with everyone. So we're on to the fun part of the podcast. This is what all the listeners look forward to, and it's our book association word game that we play here on the Book and Life podcast. And I always challenge my guests to see if they figure out the theme that I assigned them when I made up the word game. So it'll be interesting to see if you can actually figure out what I envisioned when I actually started my research for you, and see if you can figure it out.
Oh, the words.
Yes.
Which book?
It's, as I said, if you can figure out, because I took the words for the word game and I created a theme. So all of the words tied to a theme that I sort of imagined when I was researching you. So it'd be interesting to see if you could figure out what my theme for the word game that this Christmas week that I came up with.
The book that sprang to mind from those words was Rebecca, Daphne du Maurier.
Oh, okay.
When she's
So the first word that we've got is sea.
Yeah, the sea sort of. When she died aboard her yacht, and in a storm.
So our first word for this word game is sea. So who were you thinking of when you got your first word with sea?
Well, say the book that sprang to mind was Rebecca, Daphne du Maurier.
I do like that. That is a good choice, I must admit. What about crashing waves?
Well, the same. they all sort of reminded me of
that one book.
Of that one book,
oh,
yeah.
That is. I've never had one person manage to round it up to like one book before. That is incredible. I love that.
Yeah, Mandalay by the coast and the beach where she had her beach house. And,
I like that because it's
fabulous
so
book.
funny. When I looked you up, and because you were a recommendation by a friend, and they knew that I'd read Nicole Ford, and they said, well, if you like her, you'll like this woman. And they said, just look her up, see what you think. And it was like instantaneous. I just had this idea of meeting you on a walk along the beach in England with the seagulls squawking and the waves crashing and a thunderstorm rolling in. And I don't know why, but that was like, oh, I would totally meet her along a walk on a beach in England. I don't know why. That was my theme for this week. So I want to take a minute to wish our beautiful listeners a Merry Christmas and yourself, and I hope you're looking forward to the new year. It has honestly been a super duper pleasure to have you on, and we'd love to have you back when you're getting ready to release your next book.
All right, thank
and I'll
you.
be sure to have your book series in one of our spotlight upcoming episodes where
great. Thank
we will
you.
have all books by you. And what we do is we do a 3-part episode where I take the first 3 books of the series and I read them, and then I tell the listeners on a Friday what I was thinking of that series and those books. So I will definitely make sure that you have your very own episode with your first 3 books, and then I do it 3 by 3, so I'll work my way through your series eventually.
All right, it's been lovely to speak to you.
And it will be an exceptional honor to have you a part of that as we move forward. So thank you all for coming and checking out the Book and Life podcast for this week, and I will see you back next week because podcasters never take any holidays. So I'll be looking forward to seeing you all again bright and early next Monday.